Okay, well, hello and welcome to another episode of Recovery Talk with my friend Peter, and I'm Rebecca, and we are each going to talk a little bit about maintenance medication programs. I am recording this for my podcast, which is Recover Yourself, which is available on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Podcasts, Amazon Music Podcasts, and I think and I'll post it on Twitter. So that's it for me.
Hey, it's Peter. Oh, let me do this real quick. And hello, it's Peter with Creating Hope Together, the podcast about recovery from addiction, alcoholism, trauma, depression. We're going to be talking today with my good friend Rebecca about maintenance therapy and recovery. And we're going to kind of try to do as deep a dive as we usually do on the subject. And my podcast, Creating Hope Together, can be found on the normal platforms, the Spotify, Anchor. It'll be on Twitter. It'll be on my Facebook. So please do jump on there, give it a listen, give it a like, and we really thank you for your support. And so we're just going to go ahead and we'll jump off today and we'll kick it right over to Rebecca if you'd like to get the ball rolling.
Okay, well, thank you, Peter. So I had a really hard time with this. I know several people, loved ones, friends, distant acquaintances who are involved in maintenance medication, from people I encounter at work to people I encounter on a daily basis. People I never knew were on maintenance meds, people I would never have suspected were on maintenance meds. And it really challenged me to think about the type of person who would be on maintenance medication, because even though I've been through treatment and I've been through the recovery process, there's no one look, there's no one type, and I know that, but there's something that's ingrained, I think, in my psyche, maybe my cultural awareness or psyche, about what someone who's on maintenance meds looks like or presents as, right? So I didn't know exactly where to go with how I was feeling, and I was looking at, I was doing some reading and looking into this, and how we think of people on maintenance medication is largely influenced by our culture. Movies, media, news broadcasts. I'm thinking of movies like people. I'm thinking of media representation of people who are in active use of drugs. Like movies like Barfly. That's a movie that's centered around alcoholics. Or a movie like The Basketball Diaries, which is Jim Carroll's autobiographical account of his heroin addiction. Or, a movie like Boys in the Hood, how people who use drugs are portrayed, young high school age people, individuals in Boys in the Hood, versus a movie like Dazed and Confused, where it's, about the same age group, but it's a completely different portrayal and like ethos around those movies. So I wasn't quite sure exactly how to approach this. I was thinking of different economic, cultural portrayals, and I'm thinking of how it's mostly, from what I've seen or been exposed to, it's mostly a representation of people in active addiction. There's not much that I've been exposed to that show people in recovery. There are journalistic or narratives, kind of like the television show Dope Sick, that shows people going through addiction into recovery and the struggles of being a person on maintenance medications. We've got The Fighter, which is a movie about a boxer who becomes an addict and then recovers. But, outside the majority, drug and alcohol addiction isn't really treated in the recovery or maintenance of sobriety. And in other cultural portrayals of things, we deal with medicine, we deal with sickness, illness, disease, we deal with cancer. There's a movie with Dying Young with Campbell Scott and Julia Roberts. This is a young man who has cancer. He's dying of cancer, and Julia Roberts is his hospice nurse, basically, for lack of a better term. There's a movie called One Good Cop, where there's a family, a couple who takes in their nieces, and one of the nieces has diabetes, and the young niece teaches her uncle, who's played by Michael Keaton, how to give her her diabetes shot, her insulin shot. So there's more familiarity and thus more acceptance in dealing with quote unquote traditional diseases as opposed to non-traditional alcoholism, substance use, or misabuse, things like that. So I wasn't really sure where to go. Medication assisted treatment is, I think, from what I've read, what I've been trying to come to grips with, is a more holistic approach because it's an integrated practice that combines medicine and behavior. It supports both to allow an individual to find a path to function and to maintain sobriety, recovery, whatever term you want to use, right? So, there's different kinds of medication assisted treatments. There's different drugs associated with different conditions that you want to treat, different diseases, right? So for alcohol use disorder, there's 3 different drugs that I'm going to butcher the pronunciation of: acamprostate, disulfiram, and naltrexone. For opiate use disorder or substance use disorder, there's buprenorphine, methadone, naltrexone. And there's, within the umbrella of substance use disorder or opiate use disorder, there's 3 different approaches to that, which is opioid detoxification, agonist maintenance, and antagonist maintenance. So there's a lot of nuance within these different programs that help an individual maintain recovery and maintain a semblance of a life that they want. So that's what I have to start. But also, I would like to note that in my reading, I found that for as little as we talk about maintenance, medication assistance treatment, it does a disservice to people, because we talk about people who are depressed all the time. Like, everybody's depressed. Between 2015 and 2018, 13.2% of adults used SSRIs in a 30-day period. In 2015, there were between 21 and 25% of people involved in substance abuse treatment programs. So the numbers are greater for people in terms of being engaged in medication-assisted treatments, MATs, but we don't talk about it. And there's shame, and there's a tendency to hide, and a feeling like you have to continue to live in the shadows, even though you're on the road to recovery, or you are on the road of recovery. So I just wanted to point that out before I start talking in circles, and I'm going to turn it over to Peter.
So, okay, that's fantastic information. And, as usual, for me, once you get talking, it just brings up so many pieces of information and so many directions to go. And if you don't know Rebecca, do everything you can to get to know her. Listen to her podcast, listen to her information, because she doesn't wing it. She's going to go in and she's going to go, oh, here's this subject. Okay. Here's this subject that I'm going to look at. And then she goes into this subject, and then said this before about it, is like, oh my gosh, I just went down the rabbit hole, right? And so you go down the little rabbit hole, and then what happens when you get through the little hole? It becomes this whole thing. And in everything Rebecca had said, she went from uh, film to recovery, addiction, treatment. And so what she found is how this particular issue and this particular um, topic, maintenance medication, is so intertwined in everything that we do, whether we're in recovery or not in recovery, or eventually to get to recovery. It's there. And the reason I think we don't talk about it is, like she said, in the shadows, fear, judgment, stigma. But we come right back to stigma. There's a huge stigma about this thing. And so when I started the research, I did the same thing. I was going to go this one way, and really dig in there and look at that, and see where, I guess, for me, the my pain points when it comes to the maintenance medication. And as usual, it really does a lot of triggering. You find a lot of information. So if you're listening to the podcast, Google MAT addiction treatment, maintenance assisted treatment, and do the research, because a lot of folks, a lot of smart people have gone in there. They've seen it. They're in the trenches every day. They're working on this. Um, what I found was, okay, maintenance assisted treatment, or MAT, MAT, um, is done by prescription drugs, counseling. It's a behavior therapy, supported by uh, the acronym SAMHSA, and that's Substance Abuse Mental Health Services Administration. And I found a lot of good information there as well. And so where my kind of the my pain point, where I started to look, was how does maintenance medication and the 12 steps of recovery, whatever form that takes, can they coexist? Can they, is it possible? And it's it is possible. It should be possible. There's no reason it can't be. There are reasons that there are some difficult issues, difficult things. Awareness about it, um, is what I'm finding and hearing and seeing. Um, so the one thing that really struck me was where people are hiding their maintenance treatment in 12-step groups, for fear of being told, you're not clean now. You're not, this isn't how the program works. This isn't how, so you're not really clean. And it really can tend to push somebody. The stigma just hits them right in the face, and they may never come back. And if you never come back, and if you never stay on that road, that's a loose term, come back. Um, you may die, and we were lucky to not die from this, from our addiction. Um, so the 12 steps, and was designed to meet people where they are. It's very simple. Meet people where they are. So if somebody comes in that's been drinking, which I've been into hundreds of meetings in my lifetime, and people have had alcohol on their breath, and it's like, what do we say to them? Keep coming back, keep coming back. And I've seen a lot of things. Social media is, it can be a really wonderful thing, but it can be also a really cancerous thing for people really searching. But the beauty of it is when you see some of this stuff out there, if you keep looking at what's being said, people are saying, "Hey, man, there's a lot of different paths to this recovery, to stop using and addiction." And we've had podcasts in the past. We actually, I think we did two actually, uh, two different paths to recovery.
Yep.
Um, so meeting people where they are, um, as a as a as somebody that is, regular at meetings, reads the book, does the process, for them to actually say anything negative or anything prejudicial about maintenance medications to someone else is horrible. It's deplorable. It makes absolutely zero sense. It's not in the book. Actually, it's in the book, and it tells us that the only requirement for this membership to a better way, to goodness, to happiness, to a chance to finally actually not be striving to get that drug or not be striving to get that fix, and how limited your day is. What it gives that person an opportunity to do is have they have one choice: use, and all that comes with it. What the recovery process can do and does do is it gives them all of a sudden one more choice right at the beginning, and that's hope.
Yep.
And for somebody inside it to go out and lash out or say you're not really in recovery or you're not really clean is, and I'm going to just say it, it's total bullshit. And it really, you know that's a pain point for me, simply because maintenance our addiction was our first attempt at maintenance medication.
Preach. It was our first attempt at like normalizing ourselves in the culture, right?
Right, right. And then, it grew because without its checks and balances, without its processes, look what happens to us. Look what happened to us. Look at the stories we have to say about it. And so I did a little bit of reading, and um, the and in the book it really says, you can read, and my go-to is the basic text of NA.
Mm.
That's just what I just love it. um the title says it all. It just says the only requirement is a desire to stop using, a desire to stop using. It doesn't say the only requirement is that you're totally clean and never use again inside the rooms of NA. Or it doesn't. It says the same thing in AA. The only requirement for membership is a desire.
Yep.
Now, um, to to where, so I'm not going to go ahead and and preach on that, but I'm telling you, it's in the literature. And if you read the literature and you're going by the literature and you're living by the literature, the steps, which are gold, the traditions, which are gold, the stories that are told, which are gold. Millions of people have benefited from this that you can directly number, I guess,
Yeah.
But what about the folks that aren't counted that benefited from it as well? So, I mean, these numbers that they're throwing out, 2 million, it's not, that's such a low number, right?
Yeah.
So for us to come against somebody and say, you know what, you're on Suboxone and you're dirty, you're not clean, is totally wrong. Because the key thing for me is, and I was kind of afraid to say it, and I'm not sure why, but the ultimate goal of maintenance medications should be and needs to be, for me, is that you no longer need to use that particular drug uh, anymore.
Hmm.
That's the goal,
Yeah.
and it can be achievable, but that's got to be the goal. Um, then there's things about the 12-step program, how over the years it's kind of been slow to modify and change verbiage and change some of the ways, which is a good thing because then you're not going back and forth and back and forth. And as a huge community, they always take group input from all groups. So it does take a lot of time.
Hmm.
Um, in my opinion, the biggest thing that's happened to the 12-step program and to the whole community as a whole, the whole addiction and recovery process as a whole, the whole industry as a whole, was the opioid epidemic. It changed everything. Again, this is just my opinion. And it changed everything because you didn't go to the doctor, maybe way back when, but you didn't go to the doctor and say, you know what, I slipped and fell on the ice over here, my back hurts. He says, hey, you know what, let me give you some cocaine for that. I'll prescribe some cocaine. Or actually, let me give you some syringes over here and go to the pharmacy and let's get you some heroin. Oh, you're tired, you need some energy, let me give you some crystal meth, and that should help you. You don't get a prescription for that, for those street drugs. And then all of a sudden, you go in for the same thing. Hey, I slipped and fell on the ice. And then you get a prescription from a doctor that's examined you and checked you out. And they said, hey, here's some Oxy.
Hmm.
And it's like, oh, okay, great. Thank you. And you take it and you're like, oh, wow, that's fantastic. That feels that my back doesn't hurt anymore. And that's the major difference, that it was the way it was introduced, and then it's high addiction thing.
Hmm.
So it changed really everything for the industry.
Yeah.
And I think the 12 steps are moving along, coming along, and but they're slow to change. And hopefully it's not causing some folks out there um, to miss it and die from it,
Yeah.
from not being accepted or being judged. Um, and people have to know that if it's the one person comes up, or two people come up, three people come say something, or say something in a meeting that comes up against the maintenance med thing, it's just their opinion. It's not the 12-step programs, AANA, any of it. It's not the norm. It's not the um, etched in stone rule or philosophy or anything like that. So just understand that it's just one person's, at that moment's, personal opinion, and it's wrong, but it's their opinion, but they're wrong to say you're doing this and you're really not clean, because maintenance medication is a medical thing, and it's an outside issue, actually, outside of the traditions of Narcotics Anonymous as I know it. So we have to reserve, the judgment on that. So the you were talking. What did I? Oh, we were talking about you. You were talking about traditional treatment for things, and it's like, okay, who's tradition? The
Yeah.
medical industry, the pharmaceutical industries. Whose whose tradition is it? Well, we as people have probably really changed the industry as well, because of our needs have changed so drastically.
Mhm.
And so traditions in, with the medical maintenance therapy, it's an ever changing thing. And I'm grateful for it, because then I'm going to wrap up here real quick. I don't want to ramble too much, but um, then I looked at in my rabbit hole, well, what does that mean? Because I suffer from anxiety and depression, bipolar. So does the medication that I take to save me from that count as well? Am I not clean now? You know, so where do we draw the line? Where do we go from here? Well, where I think we should go is we should be able to coexist in the process for everyone, because it's already written down in the book. So I'll just pass it back to you and see what if you wanted to run from there.
Wow. Okay. So a lot of good points. I tried to write down as much as I could. Um, so one of the last things you said about taking your medication for bipolar anxiety, um, does that make you not clean? Right. And I'm thinking of, you know, we have a lot of addictions that aren't termed or treated as addictions. Tobacco, coffee, chocolate, sugar, sugar addictions, porn, technology, all these things. Porn and technology are kind of treated as addictions. But anyway, when I was in treatment, um, one of the things that helped me get through treatment and maintain sobriety when I left treatment was smoking. I smoked for several years, and then I quit for several years. And then when I started this sobriety thing, I started smoking again because I needed something. I needed alcohol was a self-defense, self-preservation mechanism for me. And I needed smoking to have something to protect myself when I was walking or about to walk into a room full of people I didn't know. It's kind of like I have something on my side. What about coffee? I go everywhere with a cup of coffee. I always have coffee with me. It's a safety blanket. It's a safety net. It's something that helps me get through my day. Is that an addiction? Does that make me ineligible for AA? I don't know. Um, all these different things. But one of the things that it's they're non-traditional, I guess, in terms of addiction, whatever. But medic MAT is is not is not traditional when you think of, like insulin for diabetics. But it's it's as life-saving for people. It's just not accessible to a lot of people. A lot of people, I think, like we mentioned in one of our earlier discussions, 41%, 45%, somewhere in there, of healthcare workers look unfavorably at people presenting who are substance users. They think they're just out trying to score, substitute one drug for another. Well, they're just trying to survive. It's like, a diabetic needs insulin. Somebody who has an opioid dependency needs something to maintain their sobriety. And I think that the stigma and shame associated with presenting and knowing that people are going to look at you askance is debilitating and limits a lot of potential recovery for people. And also, it's expensive. It's really expensive. For as expensive as, diabetic insulin is for people, Suboxone, if you try to get it from a provider, it's very expensive. It is not easy to come by or cheap. It's several $100s. I don't know how the system expects people to recover, stay recovered, and be productive if they're priced out of it. And it affects everyone. Addiction doesn't have a type.
No.
Addiction doesn't have a type. It gets everybody. And we just have to, I mean, I'm so frustrated by the fact that we don't see how vulnerable we are as human beings and just intentionally place people outside the realm of prosperity. I mean, the system is set up to exclude people. And it's disgusting. It's disgusting.
Yeah.
I remember when I was a kid like 15, 16 years old, and I saw Annie Hall for the first time. And there's that sequence where Alvy's remembering his elementary school classmates, and the one says, I used to be a heroin addict and now I'm a methadone addict. I had no idea what methadone was at the time. And now looking back at that and just the questionable things about Woody Allen himself, but that's a really, really spurious presentation, to say, I used to be a heroin addict, now I'm a methadone addict. No, you're not a methadone addict. You are a survivor using methadone to manage your disease. And it really frustrates me from the perspective of the 12 steps and MAT, thinking that taking a medicine that is to treat addiction is kind of delimited. Like, you're right, Peter, the only requirement is the desire. The only requirement is the desire. And if anybody has expressed that desire, it's somebody who's enrolled in an MAT program. That is a person who is committed to putting themselves to the rigorous schedule of going to a methadone clinic every morning at 6 o'clock in the morning to get their dose, or going to whatever clinic to get a shot of whatever it is.
Right.
It's just, there's no understanding how hard it is to live within the structure of addiction and the structure of recovery, because that's a structure as well. And I think that it's just really sad to see. We're here. I think you said this in relation to something else, but I think we still have to unmask the masked here. Like, people in MAT programs, or even thinking about MAT programs, should be proud of the decision that they've made and should be proud of the progress that they've made to get to that point. So,
Right.
Yeah.
And it's like every single addict, alcoholic that have come in with that desire have been standing on the outside looking in. Every single one of us. And then when we get in, we can tend, because we're human beings, tend to say, yeah, this is a really exclusive club now. And I'm going to take some of those things from that might not be the healthiest in my past, and use these words, these steps, these traditions, these stories, and things like that, as a weapon. This stuff becomes weaponized, and we people have to know that we're going to encounter many things on the road to recovery, and the biggest thing that we encounter on that road is other people.
Yeah.
just like we encountered people in our active addiction. Um, these are good people. They're working their own program, their own process. So you can't necessarily take what they're coming at you with without actually doing the research on it. And
Mhm.
they're going to tell you something, and you're going to say, "Well, this whole program is BS." No, get the book, do the research, read it, see what it says. That particular person might have been having a horrible day that day, and things like that. And we just got to remove that stigma from not only applying stigma to someone and holding on to those stigmas against others. But we really have to be on guard against accepting the stigma and saying, "Oh, you're stigmatizing me. Ah, I'll take it," you know,
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
I am unworthy. I am worthless. So we have to do our own battle against that as well. I wrote down, I jotted down the intro page. um, and there's a quick paragraph that I wrote down, and it says, we come to the 12 step program by various means and believe that our common denominator is that we failed to come to terms with our addiction. Because a variety of addicts found within our fellowship, we approach the solution contained within this book in general terms. We pray that we have been searching and thorough so that every addict who reads this volume will find hope um, that we have found. And there it was. What have they found? Hope,
Mhm.
another choice. So we worked this program in a variety of different ways. And I remember when I first went, had to go on depression medication a long, long time ago. There was a lady, and her name was Carmela. And I told her about it, and she put her hands on my hands and she says, I'll never forget it. She says, "Honey, this program says we stay clean by whatever means necessary." So if we're not out there drug seeking, drug buying, doing those illicit street drugs, um, we're clean, we're sober, we're in it. Um, and that saved me. I think that really truly saved me because I honestly I was you know ready to go. I had it ready to go. I wasn't gonna be around very much longer, and that helped me because I reached out to that person. I could only imagine what she would have if she would have said something different, if she would have judged it. That's taking drugs. Now, for somebody that says, you know what, I'm not going to take pain medication for a surgery, or I'm not going to take this for this particular thing. Hey, okay, more power to you. That's great. I applaud you for that. Um, but you can't put that on someone else. You cannot put the same standard on someone else. Um, so let's see.
Yeah, I mean, people who are involved in MAT programs, survival's up, retention and treatment's up, employment rates go up, birth outcomes, family structures, everything improves. We all need help. We all need a little leg up every once in a while. And I just don't understand why it's so disdained. If a person has a disease, you get medicine for that disease.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And so for me, it's a really good subject because it's something that I've seen. And um, I think one of the last things when we just said it, the treatment for The things we do to treat this addiction are 20-fold, 100-fold. There's so many different ways. There's so many different things that um, we can do to treat this thing, treat this disease. Um, and if you're in a situation, um, in a car wreck, or you see somebody that has fallen, or you see that somebody that needs help, and you just walk by, you don't help, you don't help somebody up, or you don't help somebody in an accident, or you don't help treat that person, um, then that's that's on you. And whether it's out in public or out in the world, or if it's in a meeting, uh, you're there for your recovery and to help you and make you better. But again, in the book, we can only keep what we have by giving it away, and by uh, helping somebody is the greatest gift. But by trying to turn somebody away is just like walking away from somebody that has just fallen or just been in an accident. It's pretty sad. So, but it can coexist. And I think the 12-step programs are doing as much as they possibly can with the way the structure is. And I mean, there's absolutely nothing wrong with them not jumping on board, or jumping in there and saying, hey, in a couple of weeks, we're going to change, some of the things that we do, or some of the things that we say, or a tradition, or a step, or whatever. Just doesn't work that way. It just doesn't work that way, and it shouldn't work that way, because quick change like that can lead to even more difficulties for someone else that isn't on maintenance med. So it's a pretty fine line a lot of times. um, but do your own research and stay strong in your own process. And from this recovering addict, it's okay to be on maintenance medication. It's keeping you alive. Strive to make sure that the goal is ultimately is to get past it and get off it. And if that's not the goal, and you're starting to do the seek behavior, and you're trying to stay in it on purpose, then there's a problem for you that you need to continue addressing. It's not a free pass. It still takes a lot of work, and there's a lot of work ahead, even though it's a program. It's not a necessarily a lifelong program. Maybe for some, they switch different things. But we were talking about it as yeah, we initially unmasked the addiction, and then in the beginning we're taking A, B, C, D, that the things right in front of us that we have to deal with. And then as recovery happens and time goes by, other issues come up: depression, anxiety, mental health issues, behavioral problems, all those kind of things, are there. That's why we use maintenance meds in the very beginning, to try to treat those things on our own. So yeah, it's such a great topic.
Well, thank you for all of your input. Jeez. Yeah, I mean, it's just how does someone deal with recovery from maintenance medication? I mean, because that's another hurdle, right?
Yeah, I think within the program itself, from what I've understood, is that a maintenance med program is something that is designed to, whatever, take you from whatever 30 milligrams down to 20, down to 10, down to 0, to where ultimately, you're not going to need it anymore. And that's what you want as well. That's what every addict no matter what your drug of choice was. That's what every addict wants.
Yeah.
And so stay on your program. And I think these programs, they're designed to not be lifelong programs. Um, Maybe sometimes they will have to be, but I doubt these Suboxone and methadone are any real uh, answer for long-term health, long-term process. Um, they're very hard on, still very hard on your body,
Yeah.
and I believe it's just a process of working your way through it, so you don't simply go cold turkey
And you're left with that feeling of, oh my God, what do I do now?
and you might not survive it
Yeah.
physically. You more than likely will not survive it, and whether and then the psychological part comes into it. And oh my gosh, um, so it's just a matter of staying on the program, following the program in its detail, and just simply do your best that you can do. So I think, but ultimately, the design of it is to get you off it.
Yeah. We're all in the process of recovering from something, whether it's abuse, our abuse to us, trauma, recovering from stigma associated with who we are. I mean, there's just so many different traumas, experiences out there from which we have to recover, that we just have to remember to be kind to each other. You never know where another person is coming from. You never know what another person has been through or is dealing with in the present. And I think if we keep that in mind and we don't stick to any particular dogma, like the dogma of the 12 steps or the dogma of anything, if we're not too rigorous, if we just allow that to flex and be open, I think we can all support each other and move forward together. I
Yeah,
think is really,
yeah, and for my closing statements, this is, I never wanted this to be an indictment on the 12-step programs, because it simply, it saved my life, and it saves my life, every single day. um, it's an indictment on us as people, and how we treat others, how we, I guess, interpret that book. Sometimes the book is left with uh, no interpretation whatsoever, a desire to stop using. There's only really one way to interpret that. This
Mhm.
person's here at this meeting, so they have a desire, or else they wouldn't be here.
Yeah.
So, um, not an indictment on programs, MAT program, maintenance drugs, maintenance assisted treatment, um, mental health treatment drugs, 12 steps, not an indictment on any of these great processes. It's just, it's about us and how we treat others, particularly in this window, in this addiction treatment recovery window. It's very important that we pay attention to what we're doing and what we're saying to others, particularly the newcomer.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. So anyone out there listening, if you have any questions, interests, commiserations, just anything at all, you can reach out to Peter at Creating Hope Together, or you can reach out to me. What am I? Recover Yourself. My Twitter handle is at Calamity Reeves. And Peter, your Twitter handle is?
Creating Hope 2 TO 1, the number one. Creating Hope TO 1.
Okay.
Um, and for those that have listened to this, um, kind of look for us on Twitter. We also make announcements to do we have a upcoming um, interaction on Twitter Live, where you can join in, you can be part of the conversation. We're very excited about that. We've done a couple of those already. And so we have another one of those coming up, and more of that information will be revealed on our Twitter pages, and we'll put it out there on social media. So
Okay. Well, thank you everyone for listening, and have a wonderful day, night, evening, weekend, week. Have the time of your lives.
Take care.